Welcome to A Healthy Curiosity, the podcast that explores what it takes to be well in a busy world with self-care strategies from Chinese medicine. I'm your host, Brody Welch, here to support you on your journey of health, happiness, and personal evolution. Before we get going today, I wanted to express gratitude for Mary Liz 313, who took the time to go into iTunes and rate A Healthy Curiosity. She left me a 5-star review. Brody Welch, L.Ac, comes across as sweet, kind, thoughtful, and very well versed in her chosen field. There's always great guests and useful information shared. A wide variety of topics are covered that are helpful in approaching your health and your family's health in a holistic manner. Definitely one of the podcasts I tune into weekly. Thank you, Mary Liz 313. I really appreciate you helping other people to know that this show exists so that they can empower themselves and their families to take better care of themselves in a holistic way. I really appreciate you taking the time. Okay, now on to today's show. Welcome to today's show. My guest today is Mary Shores, and we're going to be talking about the neuroscience of personal development. As you probably know, if you've listened to this show, I have a passion for neuroscience in addition to, and especially what neuroscience has to teach us about the potential for who we could be. And so I'm really thrilled to talk to Mary because she has written a best-selling book called Conscious Communications, Your Step-by-Step Guide to Harnessing the Power of Your Words to Change Your Mind, Your Choices, and Your Life. She's an author, a speaker, an entrepreneur. She helps individuals and businesses to fearlessly create their own realities. And she has been on countless magazines, TV shows, and podcasts. She's super practical, and I am really excited for her to provide us with some really concrete, actionable tips that we can all use to start improving our lives. Mary, thank you so much for joining me today on Healthy Curiosity.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here and talk about some of my favorite subjects.
I love it. I love that there's this overlap. So I've been fascinated with states like how gratitude journaling, for example, for 5 minutes a day for a week has been shown to have a positive effect on our mental health even 6 months later or so. I'd love to know what other practices we could be doing to help hack our personal development through what we know about neuroscience. I'm hoping that you could get us into some really concrete stuff and ways that we could be applying this information to our lives. What's your absolute favorite go-to practice?
Well, I'm going to put in an additional plug for the gratitude journaling, even though you already mentioned it, but I want to explain to the audience why those studies show the results that they do. And it's interesting because you said just journaling 5 minutes a day for like a week or something. It's like, why would you stop at a week?
Right, exactly.
But, so I've been doing my daily gratitude practice since January 27th, 2015. And that's the day that I reached out in like a personal development group that I'm in on Facebook. And I just said, hey, I'm looking for 3 other women to share daily gratitudes with. Well, I had 40 women respond, and I didn't want to text 40 women a day. So I just set up a gratitude group on Facebook, and it's been going strong ever since. So when I think about gratitude, it's the foundation of every spiritual or religious practice that I've ever seen. Like I've never seen one that doesn't include gratitude. But when we talk about the neuroscience of it, and I love neuroscience because I feel like it's specifically at this place where science and spirituality can really meet and understand that it's talking about the same thing using 2 different languages. But specifically with gratitude, it's not as if I feel like the way I was taught is that when I was a kid growing up Lutheran is that I owe this like deity in the sky some kind of debt of gratitude. And it's not about that at all. But what the benefit is because when you actively look for something in your environment to be grateful for, so whether you decide to write down 3 or 5 things a day, or you put 5 minutes of journaling as part of your daily practice, the result is going to be that you're going to strengthen a specific neural network in your subconscious. And it's kind of like you're priming this muscle in your subconscious to always be looking for things in your environment that you perceive to be good. And then once you do that, what happens is you start to become more aware of opportunities around you.
That's such a beautiful description of it, because really what we know from the yoga tradition is that our energy follows our focus, and from the Chinese medicine tradition that our energy follows our intention. And so and what we know from neuroscience is that what wires together fires together. And so the more practice we have at tapping into a state of appreciation, that the more likely our brain is going to go there, and that's a way that we can actually expand it, just to sponge up even more appreciation for the lives that we have. And again, yeah, like, so not from a place of shoulds or from pious duty, but rather of really practical, let me focus on what there is to appreciate, because even when things are rough, there's always something that we can look at and get very specific on that's going well. And when we focus on that, we can really magnify the its effects in our life.
Yeah, that's oh, I love the way that you put that, and so glad that you could understand it. So, another one is, and I'll borrow this one from one of my favorite authors, James Altucher, who wrote the book Choose Yourself, and I just love this book. So, one of the daily practices he suggested is writing a list of 10 things a day. And I love this daily practice because first of all, it takes like 25 seconds. But literally, this is what you do. You just take out, and he actually did it on those little green, like waiter's pads, little ledger papers.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's like 3 inches long. You just think of anything you can write a list of 10 things of. So here would be some examples. You want these to be like no brainers, like a list of 10 books that I want to read, maybe a list of 10 books I want to write, a list of 10 places I want to travel to, a list of 10 ways I could improve Facebook, a list of 10 dream jobs I'd like to have, a list of 10 outfits I'd like to go, 10 stores I like to visit, 10 foods I want to eliminate from my life, 10 foods I want to add to my life. So again, the point of writing the list is not a to-do list. And a lot of people get this confused, but it's a list that primes the idea muscle in your brain. So just like I was saying about priming that like gratitude muscle, this is going to prime your idea muscle. And here's going to be the result. So let's say when I first heard this, I'm telling you, I became like obsessed with writing 10. I would call my office in the morning and say, okay, I'm going to assign each of you a list of 10 things to write. And my staff was kind of like, oh, here comes Mary again, like with her crazy ideas. And I kid you not, that one of my employees, by like 9 o'clock that night, she goes, I have 124 things to talk to you about tomorrow. So this is what happens. You write this like nonsensical list. Okay.
And so it doesn't really even have to be something that you care about. It just gets the ideas flowing.
Total nonsensical.
Okay.
Like 10 of your favorite holiday movies, 10 of the worst holiday movies. It doesn't matter.
All right. So this
So,
doesn't actually have to connect with our values or our lives. It's just about getting our brains thinking and generating ideas in a particular category.
yes,
Okay.
10
Gotcha.
things, 10 stocks I could buy.
10,
It
10
doesn't
yeah, 10 things of any given category.
10, yeah, 10 people I just can't stand. Anyway, um so once you do that, here's what's going to happen. You do it every day. You really try to spend a few seconds doing it every day. And then 2 weeks from now, you're going to be in the shower. And this idea is going to come and hit you like a lightning rod from out of nowhere. And it's going to be like the most amazing idea you've ever had. And I can't explain other than to say, again, it's like it's priming this idea muscle in your brain that is just going to invite in better ideas. I love the way James Altucher talks about it. He says, after a while, it's like your ideas start having idea sex, and they have like these little baby ideas that like grow into other ideas. And it's a magical thing. If so that would be another little daily practice that's a total no-brainer, but if you just do it, you'll be amazed at the things that will start coming to you.
That's really a new one for me, and yet it makes a lot of sense, because the analogy of the brain as, or the different sections of the brain as essentially different stations at the gym that you can use to you can strengthen those muscles. You could, the more time you spend in your prefrontal cortex, the more ability you have to stay calm and to make good choices and things like that. And so just being able to hang out in the idea center and being able to prime that pump, that strikes me as very likely to be true, and I'm enjoying the idea of testing it out.
I think you'll have so much fun with it.
Nice. That's great. Um, One thing that I'm really interested in is this idea of upper limiting. Are you familiar with that? It's from Gay Hendricks. The Big Leap is like where I've heard of it from.
Well, I got about halfway through that
Yeah.
book, I'll admit. But what I remember the most about it is the whole zone of genius thing.
Yeah, the zone of genius
That's
thing, absolutely. The upper limiting thing is, I guess, like another word for that is that this idea that we have a set point for happiness or for health or for wealth, that basically is part of what we assume is our natural state, and that whenever we have a peak experience, or when we might when things are going really well, or we have a breakthrough, or we might be transcending our usual state of being, that we might then get sucked back by picking a fight with somebody, or making ourselves sick in some way, or gorging ourselves on sugar or alcohol or something like that, that like brings us back to our comfortable set points. What do you think of that idea?
So I do vaguely remember this, and
Hmm.
I'll have to admit that I mean I could give you my opinion, but
Hmm.
I'm in no way studied or an expert on the topic. So I think that what it sounds like you're talking about is that we all have, these old sort of belief systems in our subconscious, and that if you've reached a new level of success, I'll just say in life, but then you find yourself doing some kind of sabotaging behavior, it's because there's still a neural network in the subconscious that's going to drive that behavior. One of the things like about the subconscious is like all of our beliefs and our behaviors really do come from this subconscious. And sometimes it's based out of fears, sometimes it's based out of a traumatic event. So it's like the more that we can rewrite our stories, the more we can get stronger and stronger to strive to break through that upper limit. It also occurs to me that, like, for example, the more you just kind of let go of this old programming, the stronger you can be to keep more time in that upper limit area.
So it seems like what would be critical for doing that is becoming aware of what those limiting beliefs are, like what beliefs we are harboring in our subconscious in order to challenge them and overcome them.
So, that's an interesting one right there. I actually don't know that we need to know what they are. And
Cool.
I'll tell you why.
Yeah,
So,
please do.
I mean, it takes a lot of effort to go back and figure out what teacher said what to you in the third grade that ruined your life,
Hmm.
or you could just rewrite a new pathway, because if you don't use the old one, it's kind of like a highway system. If you don't
Yeah.
use the old one and you don't maintain it, then it's going to crumble away. So, like, for example, my own story is that I like desperately wanted to write a book. And for 10 years, my sort of like mantra or affirmation in life was, I want to write a book, but I'm not a writer. Well, the thing is that words are like a mirror to your subconscious programming. And when you hear me say the words, I want to write a book, it's almost like you can see it written on my soul like a purpose. But the words, I'm not a writer, are also a mirror to my subconscious. And it's revealing to me one of these barrier beliefs. It's revealing to me that somewhere, somehow in my past, I picked up a belief system that I wasn't really capable of writing a book. So now I suppose I could have went through 10 more years of psychotherapy to figure out why I thought this thing, or I could just invest in myself and take action anyway. And so I did that. Like, I just signed up to go to a writer's workshop.
So I love that. Like rather than feed the wound and put your attention on the limitation and get really curious about its source, you recognize that, okay, this is a belief that's incongruous with my soul dream of writing a book, and I'm therefore going to take action in the direction of actually doing it.
Yeah, because once I realized that I had gained some skills in the area of writing, it was really easy for me to reinforce a new belief. So I find for myself that now this doesn't count for every single thing, but in general, it's easier to install a new belief system. It's easier to create the seed of a new pathway than it is to maybe like go backwards, unravel the old one, figure out where it came from, and then sit with it. Because, like, I don't know about you, but there's been times that I have sort of come up to this pivotal moment in my life where I realized, oh, that's where that came from. But even though I knew that, it didn't change anything.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. I have so much insight as to where my not enoughness complexes come from in my past, but they're still here, and it's like, and they may always be. I kind of feel like whatever's been in the past, we can't necessarily change what happens, but we can turn the volume down as to how much sway it has over us in our present day lives.
Yeah, and we can focus on the more triumphant moments. We can focus on our more triumphant moments that reinforce the idea that we are enough. And even if there's this underlying thing there, sometimes there's just better ways that it can be released that don't necessarily have to trace back. Like I said, that's a
Yeah,
lot of energy to do that,
it's really true.
kind of tracing back.
It's really true. One of the tenets that we have in Chinese medicine is to root for the righteous chi. So it's like if somebody, for example, has cancer or something that's like really nasty and intractable, and it's like it almost doesn't make sense to go after the pathogen, but it does make sense to amplify the person's strength. Like what is working in this person's system? Because if we can get that to work better, they're going to have more energy. They're going to have fewer side effects of whatever medications they're going to feel. They're not going to suffer from whatever their disease is nearly as much because we're focusing on what is working and we're helping that to work better.
Yeah, I love it.
So it's the same thing, like kind of like that or it seems like a very similar thing to what you're talking about, that rather than try to delve into the problem, it's more like just concentrate on moving towards what you do want.
Right. That's so true.
You use the word unravel, and I think I'd like to unpack that a little bit more, because a lot of times when we are, for example, evolving our identities, when we're playing with new colors on our palette and sort of exploring a dimension of ourselves that we haven't explored before. Maybe it's an artistic dimension, maybe it's moving into a new leadership role, or a new role in relationship or in family, and it's unfamiliar, that our sense of who we are and who we have been in the world can start to unravel, and that can feel scary. And it can actually, a lot of times there is that it necessitates our bodies even showing up differently in the world. I'm curious if you have an experience that, it, what you think of that, and if that has any resonance in your life.
Yeah, well, I've got three kind of big things that came to me. So one, and I've got like an entire chapter in my book dedicated to, the title of the chapter is Becoming Who You Really Are. And it's all about like what you're talking about with identity, and sort of like letting go of that identity that maybe we were told we were supposed to have, in favor of the identity who is the like who we were meant to be. So what I mean by that is like the more we put effort or focus, or the more we cultivate the natural skills and talents that we were born with, the more we're going to discover our purpose. Because I'm hearing this word purpose a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And purpose can be sort of this like stressful thing when we're trying to go on this journey to discover what it is. When really it's the simplest thing ever, because it's just the skills and talents that you were born with.
It's that, yeah, that's that which is innate in us. And in Chinese
Yes.
medicine, we consider this notion of the potential that we came into this life with, both genetic as well as our natural strengths and weaknesses, our natural endowment, that's something that's said to live in our kidneys, and we label it the jing in Chinese medicine. It's that's your essence, and that who you evolve to be socially to get through different environments is sort of like the social self, but there's this essential self underneath it, and that essential self doesn't just show up in one way. It looks different at different phases of life. And so I think a lot of times people get hung up on purpose because they think it has to be one thing, or that they think that it has to be what they do for a living and that that's their purpose. But really, it's like purpose is a shapeshifter. And that there's that, our natural strengths and proclivities can serve us in a wide variety of ways if we put ourselves in different contexts.
Yes, yes. And that's certainly what happened to me in my career, because I'm in this like very unlikely career as a personal development specialist that I own a collection agency. Well, I had already had this mission for a very long time that I wanted people to feel good about paying their debt, because having a debt is like a psychological burden.
It
And
is.
it becomes one of those like barrier beliefs that we were talking about earlier, where people won't apply for the same job or start a business, or sometimes like not even date the same person because they feel like this not enoughness or this unworthiness. It's like there's this feeling of shame that follows them around. And so I went on this existential crisis where I was like, because I was really trying to take a spiritual path in life. And I thought, well, how am I going to, I had this problem, because like, how am I going to take a spiritual path as a debt collector? Because the debt collector in the Bible was like just totally not a popular person at all. But that's when I like realized that whole thing about like, what'd you call it? The jing,
Yep.
that the Jing for me, which by the way, anybody can discover their Jing by just taking a simple personality test online. So you could take like the Myers-Briggs, you can take the DISC profile, the DISC profile, you could take the Enneagram. There's so many of them and they're easy to do. And then once you get like your personality profile page, you can print it out and then just look at the positive characteristics, highlight them and just say, well, how can I use these skills and talents to serve the world? And so for me, it was like writing, speaking, teaching. So it's like, well, how do I apply those skill sets to like the career I've already established? And when I did that, I changed everything, because I went from running my own agency in this sort of like what I call a conscious way to changing the entire collections industry. And now
I
I've
would
got
love to know more about that. How did that happen?
well, you know what? It happened, first of all, because I became aware that that was my purpose. So, like, understanding, like, wait a second, this is what I came here to do. Like, my impact that I can make on the world is to make a dent in the collective consciousness of how we are treating debt in this country. And I thought, nobody else wants to do that job. I could do that job. I know how. I've already been doing it for many, many years. And I can use my natural gifts for like speaking and writing and teaching to reach out to the other debt collectors. And when I very first started doing it, it was like they made fun of me. It was horrible. They like literally, I thought they were going to throw tomatoes at me. But I just stayed in that integrity and that authenticity. And guess what? That was all I needed to do, because eventually they started looking at me and wanting to know more, and part of it is like having that natural speaking ability taught me, or made it very easy for me to know what their pain points were. So anytime you're going to solve a problem for a person or an industry or a business or whatever, it's very important that you know what their challenges are.
Absolutely.
So for those of you who are entrepreneurs, like listen up. When you, instead of like telling people what you do, ask them like, what are your challenges? And then tell them the solutions for those challenges. So the challenges in the collections industry are, tons of lawsuits, tons of complaints, and obviously unpaid bills. So if I could offer a solution for that, that also treats people with respect at the same time, then of course they're going to listen to that.
And in doing so you started off as like the lone wolf that nobody was paying much attention to or even mocking, and then eventually people started paying attention, and then eventually you started seeing that your message was resonating and having an impact, you pretty much just shot a giant hole in the whole excuse of like, oh, well, I have to change my entire life in order to make a difference. It's like you just started where you were, applied your innate skills and just did it.
That's exactly right. And it I believe that if we really pay attention to simple ways of doing that, so like in the book, I say if you could pick any archetype that you want, I call it what do I call it? Something about like your alter ego, putting your alter ego in charge. So for me, and this is kind of funny, but for me, I chose this hybrid between Jessica Rabbit and Scarlett O'Hara. And it's like whoever you choose, whether that be Wonder Woman or, or anybody, it could be Hillary Clinton. I mean, it could be anyone, but whoever you choose, it's like there's something in that person that mirrors you. And like those are the skills that you should be cultivating. So with Jessica Rabbit, it was very much this idea like Jessica's like tall and curvy and beautiful, and she could really have any man she wants, but she wants Roger Rabbit. And she wants Roger Rabbit because she wants to be part of, his force for good. He's a force for good. And I think I'm very much like that, always being that like force for good. Like you said, the lone wolf, the female warrior who's like really trying to make a difference. But then on the other hand, I really admired Scarlett O'Hara because Scarlett is like business brilliant. She's a shark, but she also has a lot of like chaos and drama going on in her life. And but when I looked at my life, that was also true. And so also, when I think about the word unraveled, one of the things that means for me is that after like, and anyone who learns about my life story, it's really one that shocks people because I was out on my own at 16. I lost a child at a very young age. And then I went on to have another child who is on the autism spectrum. And so I've just had a lot of these stressful sort of moments that have happened in my life, very much like Scarlett. And after 30 years of these traumas, I really started to manifest physical symptoms in my body. And I had a pretty significant kyphosis curve in my upper back. And for those of you who don't know what that means, when you see an older woman and she has that like humpback appearance, that's like what was going to happen to me. So it was already severe enough that it was showing up in pictures, and that got my attention, but it was extremely painful. Well, I was fortunate enough that I found this chiropractor who was doing what's called chiropractic biophysics. And it's this modality where they use traction therapy to like reposition the spine. And it was very painful. And I went through it for 2 years and I'm still doing it now. And the great news is that it completely corrected the curve, which was shocking to me because I had been to several chiropractors and they all basically said no, that they didn't know how to fix this. Like basically it was like the idea was to stop it from getting any worse, but not necessarily reverse it. So this guy could reverse it, and he did. But here's the thing, like that if any of you, want to go on one of these healing journeys, is understand that all of that 30 years of emotional trauma that I went through that caused that curve in the first place is still in your body. That's what they mean when they say the issues are in the tissues. And so as you begin to like crack those things open, just like a piñata, when you hit a piñata, all the stuff comes out. And so it was really interesting watching all of like the emotional unraveling that I went through and releasing all of these traumas.
As in like emotions from the past.
Emotions over my entire life, not necessarily knowing this. Like you mentioned yoga before, how in yoga sometimes you just get emotional.
Yeah.
And it's like the emotions bubble up from somewhere deep inside, maybe when you're in that yin yoga class in a deep pigeon pose and all of a sudden you find yourself crying and it just sort of releases. Well, it's a beautiful thing. And so, and it's what is necessary for true healing, to have that support while you're going through like when you're physically healing your body, you need to also be emotionally healing it, or else you're just going to end up with another illness. It's
Yeah,
just going to
exactly.
manifest in another way.
Or just come back. I mean, like you
Or
could
just
spend
come
years
back.
straightening your spine, but in Chinese medicine, there's the notion of the root and the branch. And if you cut off the diseased branch without treating the root, then another branch is just going to get sick, and then you're going to have to deal with that, as opposed to getting to the root of the problem and being able to make that change and address it from the source. And so, and a lot of times, the idea that our psycho emotional and physical bodies are all the same thing. It's all matter and energy changing into one another all the time. And so how we show up in the world is certainly a reflection of the lives that we've lived. And so like that kyphotic curve, that upper, sort of hunchback look, oftentimes protecting the heart, oftentimes closing off the front of the body in in a stance that doesn't allow us to feel strong and confident, and in that sort of shoulders back, upright way of that someone who's stepping into the world with confidence is going to have very different posture than someone who has been battered by the world. And so you really do have to change how you physically show up, emotionally and physically at the same time, or else one could pull you back. It works both ways. We know that physiologically, we put ourselves in a posture of slump, and our emotions do the same thing. And just like fake it till you make it. If you smile, you do actually feel a little bit happier, and that's
It goes right back to the neuroscience of personal development, because like what you said about posturing is actually going to, depending on what posture you're standing in or smiling or not smiling, you're going to create different chemicals in your nervous system, which is going to feed an emotional response to your body. And I love how you pulled this back into identity, because just to like bring the story back full circle, back to Scarlett, is like, I made a choice that I no longer wanted to be Scarlett. I really decided that from now on, I'm going to be Dorothy, because Dorothy had the power all along. And Dorothy has the unconditional love and support of the Tin Man, the Scarecrow, and the Lion. And, like we can really just choose this archetype that we want to model our lives around. And if you make that choice, you'll find the things coming to you that you need in order to support that choice. So, I went on a healing journey, which is great. But I was also like so fortunate to know, because I don't think a lot of people know that when you're physically healing, you need that emotional support as well.
absolutely. I want to take a moment to tell you about one of the most inspiring things in my life right now, my coaching group, Level Up. Our video calls are among the highlights of my week because people are regularly having breakthroughs, and not just things like losing weight or enjoying better energy and less pain, although those things are awesome, but changes that have very little to do with what we're ostensibly focused on. Our members are more confident in expressing themselves, finding their voices, drawing long overdue boundaries. They're feeling stronger and happier, clearer, and way more stress resilient. They moved from a fixed to a growth mindset, like Diana, who writes, "Deep down, I really didn't believe I could change. After all, nothing I had tried had worked in the past. Now I know better. I'm happier and more confident, and way more kind to myself. Less negative self-talk and perfectionism. I'm treating myself with the same compassion I readily give others, which has made a huge difference in my outlook on life. Level Up is the real deal. It works." Another member of mine who wanted to feel more calm and confident, which she'd literally been working on for decades, told me, "Nothing has stuck until now." This course is a transformation incubator that is so remarkable and effective that not one but two members from the last round gifted their friends an entire year's membership because they wanted those friends to be part of this circle of support and true community. It's an incredible group of conscious people who are serious about doing things differently, upgrading their nourishment, getting stronger, trading stress for ease, and most importantly, living in alignment with the person they know themselves to be. If you want in, it's time to take action because spots are limited. Head over to the Level Up page at brodywelch.com and apply. Now back to the show. I am curious how specifically, I love the idea that you invoke these avatars or these superhero alter egos, fictional characters, whoever, that represent dimensions of who you want to be. And I'm just wondering concretely, did you have pictures of these people around? Did you meditate on them? Did you sing their theme song? Like how did they become real for you in your daily life? How did you work with these archetypes other than just thinking it up one day and having that be that?
Yeah, I think that just because I'm a natural writer and speaker, that it just I'm a big storyteller, so it just would be the way I would use metaphors. Like, I would tell a story, and in the story I would want to describe a persona. So I might say, "Oh, I was just like Julia Sugarbaker." And the if you're old enough, you can remember the Designing Women, the sitcom from like the late 80s and early 90s. And Julia Sugarbaker, she had this one part of her personality that was like the Terminator. And I can totally be like that. So yeah, it's just like so interesting. And in the book, I encourage everyone to do that. And where I guess I got the idea from it in the book was in the movie Fried Green Tomatoes. So the Kathy Beatty character, she's like middle-aged housewife and very unfulfilled. Her life doesn't have very much meaning until she forges a relationship with this woman in the nursing home. But through all of that, she creates this alter ego that she calls Tawanda. And whenever she puts Tawanda in charge, her life changes.
I've been thinking about the idea of naming the critical inner voice, giving that, like, just asking my course members, like, who's speaking right now? That voice that says that you're not good enough, or that you don't have the right to go make yourself nourishing food because there's something undone at work, and that those people matter more. That when that voice rears its head, can we just give it a name? Can we just call it Bob or Frank, or like, can we just call it somebody, and then just turn the volume down on Frank or Bob or whoever it is, and give the mic internally to somebody else? And just this idea that we actually have control over which voices we listen to, and which ones get amplified and which ones get turned down. That makes me think of in the title of your book, that harnessing the power of your words to change your mind. I'd love to go into that a little bit more in terms of how we talk to ourselves and the importance of the words that we use. That if we do struggle with negative self-talk, what are some of your strategies to help us avoid using those words?
Well, so when we talk about the concept in of alignment, I've been hearing this word a lot in the last few years. Like, to me, alignment means getting your thoughts, your words, your actions, your choices, your behaviors, like all of that stuff in the same direction as your goals and desires in life. Well, and just like my story about I wanted to write a book, but I was saying that I wasn't a writer, our words are a great entry point to see where you need to do the work. And thoughts, like Wayne Dyer would always say, change your thoughts, change your life. We have a lot of people who would say that, like what you think about, you create. But that was terrifying to me, because I don't know about you, but I know we think about, on average, I guess we think 60,000 thoughts a day, and something like 90% of them are exactly the same as the day before. Well, by about 7:30 in the morning, I've already thought about 16,000 crazy thoughts that I would not want to see manifest in my life.
Yes.
So it's like, well, so what can I do? So obviously, like, trying to change my thoughts was not the right plan for me. But what I could do was be deliberate about my words. And we have these like involuntary words, like when I was saying I'm not a writer. But how often do we do that? How often do we say, like, I want to start a business, but I don't have any money? Or, I want to move across the country, but I'd be worried I don't have a job. We say like the thing we want, and then we cancel it with the thing that we feel like we don't have, or that we're afraid of, or whatever it is, that is our belief. And it's different for every single person. So what I did personally to combat that was I started writing a page of affirmations every single day, because we know that there is a power towards affirmations, because the words that we speak are actually going out, and we hear them, and it's actually reprogramming our subconscious. But to be honest, like, I felt a little silly and resistant to affirmations in the beginning. But I was very dedicated and I knew that they would work. So I started writing them down. And I did this for the entire year 2016, and it really, it took about 45 days to like plant those new seeds of new neural pathways in my subconscious. But once they were there, it was much easier to just keep them going. There is a chemistry term, I don't remember what is it. It'll probably come to me as soon as we get off the show, but it means that activation energy, that's what it's called. Chemistry term called activation energy, which means that it's easier to keep a chain reaction going than it is to start one.
Yes, also
So,
inertia, right?
okay, there you
Getting
go.
getting over the stuckness, getting into actually doing it, and then it's much easier to keep it going.
So again, with these simple daily practices that we can do that are not hard, over time they make a big difference, because like I really got trapped in this sort of I feel like we've got this culture scape going where we want these instant fixes. And I was the queen of going to every like fix your life weekend workshop known to man. Like, I've literally been to thousands of them. Come to this weekend and have a transformation. And I would always believe that I could like fix my life. Well, when I would come to the end of the week or the weekend, and everybody else would be walking around saying that they've changed their life, and I'd look in the mirror and say, well, I'm still the same person. It didn't work for me. But what was interesting is I'd talk to that same person 3 weeks later, and nothing had changed. They were just riding high on the energy of the event. So they were feeling good because they created all this dopamine in their brain, and it was sort of like a mental trick.
Yeah, or a peak experience that then fades because it's not integrated.
Yes. And so what I learned from all of my 15 years of doing that is that true transformation happens in small pivots over time. And that's the real powerful transformation, because it's permanent.
Okay, I just love that you just said that, because that is the entire premise of my course, Level Up. It is all about making the small changes that become the new normal, and then you take the next step, because the changes are so small that it's really easy to discount and think that you're not getting anywhere. But then after you've been doing it long enough, you have like, okay, now I've meditated for a minute a day for a week, and now I'm meditating 5 minutes a day for a week, and now I'm meditating for 20 minutes a day, and it's been 6 months, and maybe it took 6 months to get a 20-minute meditation practice, but to go from zero to a daily practice is a massive shift. And it's the kind of thing that it's really, and it's true with eating habits, it's true with exercise, that the low hanging fruit, we go for that, we integrate it, we make it easy, and then we take the next step, and it works.
It does. And it's so exciting when you can look back over like a 5-year period or a 10-year period and realize how much you've come full circle. Like, I can make fun of the person I used to be. But the funny thing is, the person I used to be would have made fun of the person I am now.
Exactly, because you're different. You're that different.
Yes.
If people are feeling like they want to really take charge of their personal development, we talked about gratitude, we talked about the 10 things list. What's one more thing people can do to focus on really putting their energy into what they want to be creating and who they want to be showing up as?
My best, like, advice for that, and it's so simple, but I'm telling you, it's what landed me the book deal with Hay House, which Hay House was definitely my dream publisher. It's this concept, I call it cleanse or clog. It's chapter 5 in my book, which is called To Cleanse or Clog. That is the question. And it's really based on this idea that if we can accept that infinite possibilities are really available to us in our life, but understand too that possibility doesn't necessarily mean the good things. Because we hear infinite possibilities, I think we just automatically assume that, like, okay, we're going to win the lottery and we're going to like manifest all this great stuff. But the truth is that you're just as likely to manifest flowing in the chaos of all the uncertainty and, just negative circumstances that really keep you down, as you are to manifest the good stuff. So how can you like level the playing field and turn your possibilities into a probability, meaning that they're more likely to happen? And I came up with this very simple way to do that, because our realities are created in the thinnest sliced moments of life. Choice by choice, moment to moment, what you're choosing is literally creating frame by frame the next moment of your life. And so cleanse or clog simply means, like, I'll use relationships as the first example. Like, in your relationships, whether they're with your significant other, your clients, your siblings, your children, your friends, every relationship you have, everything you do, every word you speak, everything is either cleansing that relationship or clogging it. And I think that's like a really easy concept for us to understand. But it's true in every area of life, because what I'm really saying is every choice you're making is either creating a deeper connection or driving a disconnection. And so, to illustrate how it works, let's say that I am on a diet and I want to lose 20 pounds, but I don't really have the energy to like read another diet book or learn the I can't even pronounce these things, paleo or keto or whatever is like the next hottest thing on the market. But can't I just use my own innate intelligence and like look at a piece of food and ask myself, if I put this piece of food in my body, is it going to cleanse me or clog me? So if I look at an apple, most people are reasonably can understand that putting this apple inside my body is going to cleanse me. But if I put a Snickers bar in my body, or, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine this, but how about a can of Mountain Dew? If I put that in my body, it's going to clog me. So as long as I'm making cleansing choices, then I'm going to be more likely to meet my goals. So, but how does this also, you can apply this in every area of your life, your career. What are you doing to create deeper connection in your career to what you want, versus what are you doing to drive a disconnection in your career? Kind of like that upper limit thing, or your finances.
Yeah, really any choice that we make can either be taking us towards where we want to go, keeping us on our current path, or taking us actively on a downward track.
Right.
And that's true. That's I think that's true. That's really how we apply Chinese medicine principles to daily life, is we look at the nature of the imbalance in the person, and we think about, so if somebody's got too much heat or too much chi stagnation, it's like somebody with chi stagnation, their energy's not flowing well. They likely don't have enough space or enough time to process life. And so it's like, should they take on another project? Is that gonna take them more in the direction of chi stagnation or less? And really like thinking about it, when I write self-care assignments for people, it's really just looking at the nature of the imbalance in the person's life and the nature of the thing that they're wondering about adding or subtracting. And it is almost that simple. Like, is this going to be medicine? Is it going to be poison?
It's so true. And so I have tons and tons of people that are literally writing me letters saying they're making all of their choices now through the lens of cleanse or clog. And as long as you can, it's not about being perfect. So my general rule of thumb with this is an 80-20 rule. As long as about 80% of the time you're making cleansing connected choices, you'll be okay. You can have I went to a holiday party last night and really geeked out on some like chocolate cheesecake and I don't know, other various yummy things that if I ate that on a daily basis, I'd have a significant like health problem. But, once in a while, it's not going to hurt me to indulge and just really enjoy the taste and texture and all of the juiciness of that food.
Absolutely. And recognizing that is part of that 20%, that you can enjoy it guilt-free and recognize and still trust that you're treating your body on a regular basis the way that you'd like to.
Yeah, except for Mountain Dew. You got to draw the line somewhere.
Right. And really the 80/20 rule really does break down on certain choices that are absolutely catastrophic, right? Like that for people who really need to be gluten-free, for example, it's not enough to do 80% of the time. You really have to be 100% to get 100% of the benefits. And there's, obviously if somebody's a little heroin once in a while is not, like it's like there really are some bright lines that we really shouldn't cross, depending on who we are and what we've got going on. Toxic relationships, same thing. It's like having somebody who is abusive in your life, even a little bit, is enough to totally take down your trajectory. So I'd say for most things, I agree with the 80/20 rule. And there's certainly some things where we really have to use our faculties of discernment 100%.
Yeah, I was just making a joke, but you made a beautiful point out of that. Thank you so much.
Well, it's part of the being the power of words, right? Like we don't want people to take this too literally.
Right. Yeah, the right back to it. The power of words. One time I woke up with this like strange and powerful desire to learn the Hebrew alphabet. I mean, who does that? Who like wakes up at 6 a.m. and thinks I have to learn the Hebrew alphabet today? But I did. So I
Apparently
went
your
to
inner wisdom has that desire.
It's so true because what I learned, I went to YouTube and I found this video of this rabbi who had taped his Hebrew classes, and he was doing like an introductory thing on the Hebrew alphabet. And I got 29 minutes into the video, and I'll never forget this, but he said, there's a word in the English language that we all know as the word the magician uses when he pulls the rabbit out of the hat, which is abracadabra. And of course, he pronounced it with like rolling his R's and his H's, and it was really quite beautiful. But he said that this was an ancient Aramaic word that meant abara, I will create, kadabra, as I speak. I will create as I speak, abracadabra.
And in the beginning there was the word, right? Like that's where it that every this whole creation is said to be vibration that came from God's mouth.
Yeah, and so I was right in the middle of writing the book when this happened to me, and I realized in that moment at the 29-minute mark that that was the whole reason that my inner guidance had led me. When you're writing a book, it's sort of like you just stumble on these things that confirm and validate all of the teachings that you're trying to put out there. So it was just what I needed in that day to like keep me pushing, keep me moving in the connection and, creating the connection of the book that I wanted to create. That was very, like, I had a very specific intention that I want to create. I want to create a book that teaches us that we creating our reality is real, but I didn't want it to be so like mystical that practical people wouldn't pay attention to it.
Well, what a beautiful story about following that intuition to a place of really knowing, oh yeah, that's what I came here for. Now I can go. It's not about studying Hebrew for the next 5 years of your life. It's about getting that nugget and recognizing that that's what you needed in order to connect more deeply with your message.
Yep, it's so true. That's exactly what happened.
So cool. Quick announcement about a mind body detox day that I'm going to be hosting on April 14th, which is a Saturday. In Chinese medicine philosophy, the energies of the seasons are reflected in our bodies and minds and emotions as well. And the season of the spring is associated with the liver, which is all about new growth. And also detoxifying our lives from what no longer serves us. And this happens on a mental, emotional, and spiritual as well as physical level. So I'm inviting you to join me for a day where we're going to align with the chi of spring and support our livers so that we can handle stress better, so that we can support our courage, clarity, creativity, and self-expression, keep ourselves in rhythm digestively, reproductively, diurnally, and adapt and evolve into who we are becoming next. We're going to be doing Qigong, breathing, meditation. We're going to be getting into dietary and herbal tips for the change of seasons, as well as acupoints for stress and stress-related problems. We'll go into EFT and tapping for limiting beliefs, and we'll play with essential oils. If you want in, head over to brodywelch.com/mind-body-detox and claim your spot. Hope to see you there. And also, if you love live events, mark your calendars for my retreat that I'm going to be hosting in Mexico at Present Moment Retreat Center, February 16th through 23rd of 2019. That's next year. Get out of the cold and wet and dreary and come hang out on the beach with me. It's going to be super fun. Details soon. But Mind Body Detox Day, April 14th. Would love to have you join me. Now back to today's show. So Mary, we are about out of time here, but if people are interested in, first of all, getting your book or connecting with you, what can they do?
Well, I would love for all of you listening to just go on Amazon and find Conscious Communications. Just read the description, see if it resonates with you. And if it does, grab the Kindle version or the paperback version. And you can also jump to my website, which is www.maryshores.com. There is a free companion guidebook that has all of the coaching exercises in the book already mapped out for you, like a blueprint of the entire book. And what I love about the coaching exercises is they are all designed to build new neural networks in your subconscious, and they build on each other. So just like some of the things that we talked about here today, but much, much more, you're going to go through this journey of just completing these exercises and making some change. And so honestly, even if you didn't purchase the book, the guidebook would probably still be useful for you.
Mary, thank you so much for being so generous with your wisdom and your time and joining us today on Healthy Curiosity. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Brody.
Thanks for listening today. For more episodes of A Healthy Curiosity, you can visit the iTunes store. If you appreciated today's show, please leave us a review. This helps other people to find the podcast. You could also head to brodywelch.com, where you can find free self-care resources, learn more about Chinese medicine, and let me know what you'd like to hear about on future episodes. I'd love to hear from you. Till next time, be good to yourself.